Okay. Okay, so I'm very happy to be in conversation today with Ashvin Devasundaram. He's a senior lecturer at Queen's Mary on world cinema, and he's a friend. So the conversation we are going to have today, it's more about it's about his film, and I really want to get some information about how the film was thought, how you've been working, and as this video is going to be hosted on the YouTube channel on Creative Indian Archives, I just thought it would be nice to be in conversation with you. So welcome. And Ash, can you tell us a bit more about first the title of your film and a bit more about what was your the rationale really that guided you through making it?
Thanks, Monia, for inviting me to talk about the film. The film is called Movies, Memories, Magic, and it's a 1-hour documentary. And the underpinning ethos of the film kind of links back to my interest in the historical and evolutionary trajectory of Indian cinema and South Asian cinema, I should say, in a UK context. So there were quite a few intersectional aspects about that led to the making of this film. But on a more practical level, this film was one of the outcomes of a project that was funded by the UK Heritage Lottery. And it was a collaborative project called Memories Through Cinema, run by the UK Asian Film Festival in collaboration with Queen Mary University of London. Yeah. So I was the creative lead on the project. And it's important to mention that this was a volunteer-driven project. So we identified a group of volunteers of different ages who came to the project to contribute and largely were at the vanguard of the project in terms of sourcing some of the archive material, being part of the process, but also gaining essential skills and awareness of how to conduct interviews with the communities, members of the public, and kind of help in shaping and sculpting the two outcomes of the project, namely a public exhibition that we held at the Nehru Centre in London and the documentary film Movies, Memories, Magic. So that in a nutshell is an encapsulation of how the project came about. It was a 1-year project, as I mentioned, which ran in 2018.
Right.
And what we tried to kind of express as the focal point of this film was British South Asian contributions in terms of cultural heritage, but looking at an eclectic range of themes and issues ranging from politics and migration to food, music, fashion. And it was a huge challenge to kind of encompass these, these heterogeneous themes and issues into relatively accessible 1-hour documentary. So that I think was a very important component of how to make this film kind of relatable to a broad intercultural audience rather than, just for South Asians in the UK.
Yeah. Ash, I go straight into a question that to me it's very dear, and I'd like to know how those volunteers have been using archives. Also, what kind of archives they've been using to either stimulate conversation or as part of the overall narrative of your documentary.
Right. So a lot of the volunteers had no previous background in filmmaking or archive research. So one of the foundational facets of the project was equipping them with the skills through training workshops that we conducted. We held as milestones along the research journey or the project's journey. So we had training sessions on archive research, how to go about sourcing archive, doing online research, which I think it was very important in terms of gaining still images, links to historical narratives, hidden histories. So we were trying to excavate or perform an archaeology of hidden local histories from a South Asian perspective, looking at the heritage that's been oriented around cinema halls, iconic cinemas in places like Southall, in Harrow, in Wembley, across London and beyond, trying to trace these hidden histories and also link them and tell a story visually through images. And that's where, archive images played a hugely important role. But I think one of the most important takeaway points from this project for both the volunteers and for myself was the informal archives that emerged, or the alternative archives that were beyond the conventional dominant hegemonic, repositories of archive material. So when you think of archive, you think of, established buildings that house archive and are kind of entangled or run by organizations, institutions, and in government. But what we did find that by communicating with different people, just ordinary people across London, across the UK, was that they had their own repositories and archives that, kind of resonated with their memories and their sense of nostalgia, their utilization of film as a bridge between countries and cultures. And I think that was a real revelation for us when people would bring out their own kind of photographs from yesteryears, their recollections of the of times gone by, but also, people who were kind of spontaneously documenting images, the transformation of social memory and local culture. For example, we met a photographer called Raju Vaidyanathan who lives in Brick Lane and had been documenting Brick Lane and its transformations across 30 years.
Right.
So he had this vast kind of collection of images.
Right.
Some of them were just incredibly iconic, let's say, because they captured the local built environment, but also the shifting patterns of migration, the local population, and a kind of, because when we invoke the word archive, a lot of students especially tend to associate it with archaic or antiquated. They see it as something in the past, something that's fossilized or ossified. But actually what we were trying to do was to create a living, breathing archive through the film.
Yes, yeah.
And that was the motivation behind, Movies, Memories, Magic, to integrate people's own histories, their own individual histories with the collective consciousness that had been shaped across, patterns of migration from the 1950s when South Asians, started coming to Britain and contributing their own kind of definitive, distinctive kind of forms of cultural heritage in the formation of this hyphenated identity, British South Asian. So in that sense, to cut a long story short, from the archive perspective, we did have, we ran workshops in relation to how to go about sourcing archives and relating them to the narrative that we were building in terms of constructing the film narrative as well, the themes of food, fashion, music, mapping them onto, so kind of choosing appropriate images that would tell the story visually, but also in terms of even looking through catalogs, going to local libraries, for example, Tower Hamlets Library, the Ealing Borough in particular, speaking with local historians, and, sifting through some of the material there, some of the literature as well as visual material that was, existing, and kind of developing the skills to collate and condense and thematize all of that material and then relate it to, our shaping of the film. So there was there's quite a lot of stuff going on, because we also had running in parallel with the creation of the film, the creation of the exhibition, the public exhibition that we were looking at, which was again, trying to tell the story of South Asians coming to Britain, and not just through cinema, but also again, we recreated a drawing room, an archetypical drawing room in Southall, a South Asian kind of family drawing room in the 1970s, what the decor would look like, and the kind of television set in the corner and so on. That was a big hit with people who visited. So there was, as I say, multi-dimensional approach to this project, where archive was quite central, but archive was also utilized in tandem or in conjunction with several other kind of facets, including oral history interviews. So that was another training masterclass that we had with the volunteers, how to go about, meeting with different people, asking them questions, kind of coming up with questions as well, that would, glean interesting anecdotes and recollections from people about how cinema has been utilized as a bridge, as I said, as well. They also had a workshop on basic editing skills, which gave them an insight into the filmmaking dimension as well of the project. So it was kind of tripartite, you might say. So there was archive, oral history narratives and interviews, and filmmaking.
That's brilliant. You have been touching so many aspect of the current project I'm in on, and the overall idea of, I absolutely agree on the fact that archives are, we need to think about archives as moving away from that institutional, if you want, archive. But I think we need, and the overall core of this project is to think about archives in a much more flexible, democratic, creative way as well. And you've been touching on, citizen archives and how their voices are silenced naturally, if you want, by the process of archiving or archives, but they are naturally existing, and we need to find ways, and often creative ways, to make sure that those voices can be heard, or they can be they can become integral part of an archival experience, if you want. So I really like, and I really enjoyed how you have been sharing with us this overall process that was about, of course, of the overall idea and the process of putting together the documentary. Ash, my very final question is your documentary available to see anywhere? Because I would put a link somewhere.
Well, just to give you a little bit of background context, we did make the film freely accessible during the pandemic. So that was a very kind of noteworthy showcasing of the film to anybody who wanted to watch the film in the public sphere. We're still working on uploading this film on the UKAFF channel, so YouTube channel. So I'd say watch this space, and I can send you a link to kind of make available, because we wanted this film to be open access, to as wide and global an audience as possible. Worth mentioning that it's been screened in several countries. It's been screened across the UK, but also in South Africa and in Singapore and India as well. So it has traveled, and it's galvanized a lot of interesting reactions and comments from the audience. It's precipitated them to share their own memories in all of these countries, of cinema going and viewing practices as well. So so that I'm happy to share a link to the film.
Once you have a link, just let me know, so I can upload it in on the channel, and people can watch it as well. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ash. It was great, and thank you for the insight and for the story, which is always great.
Thanks, Sonia.
Thank you.